onto this. All right. So hello, everyone. Name's Silvio here, letting folks roll into our sort of first informal technical call as we brainstorm some of the goals for the Miami Climate Collabothon. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a Miamian with 10 years of impact investing as a background, and really focus on how we can use technologies for public good. One of the folks that will be, you have a lot of local community leaders and people that I really love, admire, and respect in today's call. Everybody here has been selected as a community leader for your particular community, and to help get a technical base in it, to just share the vision of where we're going, and then maybe have DJ join as our guest today to create some guardrails for us as one of the first projects that we are modeling after Open Climate. DJ was super instrumental in building that out. So I think that taking a long step back, right now there's a couple of really amazing opportunities. The United Nations is having global stock take, which is which is a mechanism meant to support understanding how different countries contribute their emissions. These NDCs, national determined contributions, to the United Nations Paris Climate Accord, which is aiming to make sure that we, don't heat our world up, basically. And our conversation here is not about climate change. Actually, our conversation today is going to be about how we can create citizen science tools and community engagement to aggregate, integrate, and harmonize a lot of siloed data and expertise that exists in Miami-Dade, in City of Miami, in FIU, and other NGOs around our community. And one of the, I think, big wins, sorry for that loud ping. One of the big wins I think we can have is first to create a shared open architecture that allows us to aggregate everyone's data together so we can actually use machine learning, artificial intelligence to gain operational insights from this, and then to be able to do other works in a number of workshops and series that allow the community to come together into work around, carbon emissions and nature, right? This, which I think is critical as we move towards creating any smart city in the end. So our Climate Collabothon is, I think we'll have three main takeaways or three main tools that we'll be able to give to the community. One of the tools in this toolkit, all we're gonna help us move towards net zero and bring greater transparency and awareness and engagement for decision makers, both citizens and people in the government and in academia. And so that's a bit of the goal. So one of them is this shared open platform for data. The second is tools and a gamification that allows us to enrich that data, right, with citizen science, and the third is using creating some sort of digital twin, augmented reality, metaverse type thing that allows us to display and visualize and interact with that data in a way that's fun and immersive and cool and aligned with the brand of everything that is Miami. So that's the big idea at a UN level, and I think how we integrate. At a national level, right, the president last Earth Day signed that the US needs to create an inventory of all their nature across the US and look at how do we put this natural capital and its assets onto the balance sheet of the US government, right? Huge. That's a huge undertaking, which we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar endeavor to change the economic landscape, not just for the US, but for the world, with these with this new economic indicator called natural capital wealth, right? So natural capital wealth, I think, will be used alongside GDP, inflation, jobs numbers in terms of being able to understand where we are in the state of the economy. With that being said, I've given you an introduction on myself, our guest of honor, which will be leading today's conversation, DJ, which will make an introduction on himself. All of you are extremely esteemed guests and really well respected and admired by me. So thank you for being here and dedicating your time. And lastly, the big visions and the goals of the tools that we'll give with the Climate Collabothon that will allow us to build the deliverables to the community and how we sort of actually get there, right? So anyways, and without further ado, DJ.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Silvio. There are quite a few more on the call than I was necessarily expecting, but that's let's just do it off into the deep end. I will be happy to just kind of share a little bit of who I am, where I'm coming from, just in the spirit of open science, in the spirit of just coming together and sharing some threads that I follow and that I'm participating in, with an invitation to get involved. And there are, I think, a number of components that that I'm involved with that I believe can come together, and in and around a collabothon. And so the first really is, I'll share a little bit of just where I'm coming from in my background, and then we can just open it up to a broader conversation, and just more of a very collaborative brainstorming. Maybe think of this as the beginning of the collabothon itself, and coming without too much of an agenda, but just kind of with openness and honesty and integrity, and a desire to do something really cool. So so my background is I'm an entrepreneur. I've been working in the high-tech space for 20 years or so. I was an early employee at a company called MuleSoft back about 6 or 7 years ago. That is an integration platform that Salesforce ended up acquiring. I was the first Salesforce subject matter expert there, and I did a lot of work integrating different systems together. And I left there to get very involved in blockchain, and I started, I think it was probably technically the first art blockchain company, and that got acquired. This was well before Ethereum or NFTs. I occupied that design space of essentially registering assets and actions onto the blockchain, and just exploring what all that would look like. And then worked on a networking standard for the IEEE that got accepted in draft format, and then met the kind of very common thread here is Open Earth and the Open Climate Collabothon. And I first got involved with that project probably about maybe three years ago at least. By now, I met the director of the Open Earth Foundation, called Dr. Martin Weinstein, and I met him, and he had just published a white paper on what he called an open climate accounting system. And Sylvia, I don't know if you could just put that in the chat, his original white paper, which was just kind of like a good foundation and grounding. And so the way he described it to me is, he said, Dave, I've been really deep in this climate world, and you wouldn't believe it. We're trying to have a budget for our environmental actions, and make sure that we don't outrun nature's headlights and nature's ability to sustain the source and regenerate the retirement of whatever products that we create and however we utilize nature. But we don't have a consensus accounting system. We don't have a QuickBooks. We have no way of coming to agreement on what is even a good action, what is considered harmful, and by what degree, and how do we even imagine secondary, tertiary, quaternary effects, both good and bad, with respect to our actions, so that we might know in our hearts that pesticide and fertilizer runoff will end up in the ocean a few miles downstream and destroy a seagrass bed or a mangrove forest. But we can't come to quick consensus, and we get stuck and mired in political lobbying and scientific, kind of jockeying. And at the end of the day, nature doesn't care, in the sense of just the observation is, well, nature does care, but doesn't care about our excuses, and we just then have to witness seagrass being destroyed by the football field, probably a minute by now, and no way of coming to quick consensus where we should be able to say there are so many other agricultural practices we could have that would stop the pesticides and fertilizer. Oh, by the way, what about our sewage that then combines with the nitrogen and phosphorus runoff and et cetera, et cetera. So that was the idea, really, the genesis idea as I narrate it now behind the Open Earth project and the Open Climate Accounting System. And the way that Martine Weinstein described it to me is that one of the absolute most important technologies, if not the single most important technology that we have in this kind of challenge, is collaboration, and radical collaboration, in fact, and new technology that we haven't even, new types of collaboration that hopefully we haven't even conceived of or invented yet. And so he initiated a project called the Collabothon with a number of other folks in partnership with Yale Open Innovation Lab. And the idea was kind of like a hackathon, but not just hacking technology. It was intended to bring together multidisciplinary collaborators where we understood that we need a diverse, highly diverse voice from many different perspectives to then all contribute in many different ways. There are data scientists, there are policymakers, there are soil scientists, there are oceanographers. We need basically everybody to come together and collaborate to really affect change. So I helped build one of the early prototypes of this early on, and the Open Climate Accounting System, which I think you can now access it at openclimate.network, I believe is the URL. And so Open Climate Network. I think that's it. Okay. And so from there, this launched, and this itself is an open source project. And this is also when Martine started telling me about the global stocktake. And he said, well, Dave, have you ever played the game of telephone as a kid, where you all sit in a circle and you have like one person start by saying a sentence or something, and then whispering it in the person next to your ear, and you keep going, you going. He was like, well, as important as it is to essentially take an inventory of all of the commitments and the contributions to the overall equation of our climate situation, we are nonetheless still playing the game of telephone with our data and with our integrations. And so he said, this is what we need to fix. The global stocktake is the first, it's a kind of a process as a part of the UN. I'm not deeply involved in all the politics of it, but the general idea is that, we need to collect all this data from all these different sources, integrate it together, and create a cohesive reference view of what the state is of climate, and what are all the commitments, what are the claims that are being made, the pledges that are being made. And this whole process, as it is imagined today, like if we don't, everybody on the call here and everybody that hasn't yet gotten involved with this process, if we just the status quo and the business as usual, likelihood is that this process will take years, and it will still involve a lot of back and forth and disagreements, about how to measure, what to measure, what data sets can be used, where to get them, the permissions of that. And so as much as this is a totally essential and necessary thing, there are challenges around this. So, a lot of them, and they have to do with legal challenges, they have to do with technical challenges, all sorts of things. So it's a bit of a just an overall backdrop, and I can share a couple more things. So since this project launched, and if you can give me back control, I will see if I can look for, yeah. Okay, so Open Earth really is you can think of it as well, it is a not-for-profit climate tech R&D organization. And if Sylvia, if you can allow me to share my screen. And so the idea behind Open Earth is there are some kind of, there's a core space that they are holding and core projects that they are initiating, but really it aims to be a community. And again, I just want to re-emphasize that collaboration is the core technology that Open Earth really, that business that they're in, radical collaboration, that's really part of its ethos. And so one of the projects that is a spin-off out of Open Earth Foundation that we kind of spun out is a project called Digital Gaia. And the thesis behind Digital Gaia, you can see that the focus really is around agriculture only initially, and I will share that the core technology behind Digital Gaia is very much open source and open science as well. It can go well beyond reinventing agriculture. This is just the initial starting point, simply because, as I was mentioning before, it's because everything is so hyper interconnected, it's very hard to imagine changing the overall equation of energy if we don't start with our energy, which is our food. And so you could really think of seeds and soil as the most important technology that we really have. And so I won't spend too much time here, but I want to just kind of go through this, quickly. This is in the realm of decentralized science. So if you follow the Web3 crypto space, there are a lot of acronyms like, and this is also, I would say, a little bit of refi thrown in. And so this is really in the realm of DeSci and refi for regenerative agriculture. So there's a lot going on, kind of in this whole product. But the reason why I mention it now is that we have just launched 2 open source projects after about a year's worth of work. So I just want to share this. This is after about 2 years. One is called Fangorn, which is, and I'll put these in the chat as well. So this is one, and then the other is what we call Gaia Hub. And so I'm hoping these projects are very complementary with what with what we can do in the Collabothon, and maybe we can kind of work together. And the reason and we can possibly consider going beyond agroforestry and agriculture if necessary. I want to reiterate that Fangorn, the core engine of Digital Gaia, is an open source generative model of models engine. And so it's a new type of AI, artificial intelligence, that we call natural intelligence, because it's really inspired by nature. And we are basically, it's a very different, it's a whole different philosophy, honestly, and type of AI. And what is really foundationally different about it is that it really focuses on being able to create causal inference chains for any given model scenario. So For example, I mean, and pardon me if it seems as a bit of an aside, but if I take this cup here and if I go to my roof and if I toss it off my roof, we all know that it's going to break. And the way that we know that it's going to break, even though you've never seen my roof and my background is blurred, is that all of us have an understanding of what it means to be brittle and what what a roof is and what the roofness of a roof, because we've all seen a lot of roofs and we all have a lot of confidence that that's going to break. So what we want to do is instantiate a decentralized network of model space where instead of just modeling a cup and the cupness of a cup and the roof and the roofness of a roof, but biochar, for example, and the biocharness of biochar, and soil and how is soil different than dirt, and really start to build from the bottom up, and then allow all of the best soil scientists and all the best data scientists and all these folks to really start to collaborate in a very decentralized way. And ultimately, we want to tokenize this into a token that we call FERN, which stands for Free Energy Reduction Numeraire. And so I'll stop there and just, I know I spoke a lot about a lot of very dense topics, and I hope it wasn't overwhelmingly overwhelming, but that's just kind of some of my background. And then my day job, one more thing is my day job is I work at a company called Source, and we have a decentralized data management platform. And so, yeah, just open it up for, topics, questions, ideas, and just really appreciate everybody's time.
All right. I think that's great. I'll chime in. I'll chime in really quickly to add some context there, which is thinking about, we're talking about agriculture, right? Let's talk about water for a second, right? We have a lot of people that are from Miami, and Miami, we have different natural capital accounts and different things that we want to account for. But first, of course, we need to aggregate all this data. So it's kind of like the first goal of everybody coming together on the Climate Collabothon. It's like, let's aggregate all our data together in a way that's integrated. But one of the benefits of this is we'll be able to then pinpoint, right, sources or pollutions of sources for where our water is being contaminated, and think about other ways to create a scientific approach to solving those things, right? With the involvement of everybody that's here in this call, the universities, the government, individuals, citizen science. So I think that's pretty exciting from that point of view. Let me see if I can get at that. So one of those such goals is food security is food security we can solve for. I think is a major thing we can solve for in Miami. Heat and cooling and trees and carbon capture. This first goal is within all the different accounts that we can account for. The first thing is let's just account for carbon. Where are the emissions coming from and where are the emissions getting sequestered into? I think that might be the low-hanging fruit for us to try to accomplish. And in Miami, there's a lot of big interest for water accounts, right? What are marine accounts and our water accounts and the ecosystem services they can provide? We'll have those conversations, and we're going in that direction, which is going to lay the basis for different collections and investments into the environment and insurance policies and projects that will allow us to become the climate tech hub for our region, if not for the country. But we have to sort of lay down the basis for a table. And I think this network, these things that DJ is working on, between zero knowledge proof, between networks that help all collaborators come together, between open shared platforms that then like I said, lay the foundation for using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and other things like ChatGPT capabilities that can allow each one of you, your communities, and our resilience officers and academics to query this data and make sense of it in other ways that weren't really possible before. So we'll create new types of knowledge bases. Now, the goal for today is that was just a bit of a backdrop, some of the tools, resources that we'll make available, and then how we can train people, DJ, maybe how we train the community or create a toolkit for folks to start become aware of before Earth Day, or how we can make the most of our time together and the community in the different places and stakeholders. So we could do a quick round robin if anybody wants to say hello, so DJ gets an idea of the scope and the people and people's background and technical capabilities, particularly to where we can fit, so that all of you start to see, now this is the direction, that's the big vision. Now in my mind, everybody fits very clearly into a piece of the mechanics, right, to get this done. Now my goal is to paint that picture back to the community for you. So this is one of those exercises. So anyways, that's me. I'm basically trying to tie in now as a visiting fellow to FIU, bringing FIU, Miami-Dade, Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, Miami Beach, and City of Coral Gables, so that we create a minimum viable ecosystem that really paints a picture of what we're trying to do. So that's kind of my role in today's conversation. If anybody else wants to go next, maybe ladies first. Robin, if you want to say a quick hi, pass it over to Mari, which I know has gotten a little bit of a big picture idea, and then whoever wants to jump in, just raise your hand and I'll keep calling on the next person.
Okay, sure. My name is Robin Delisser. My career has been predominantly tech and executive recruiting. I was big in the blockchain world as speaking and organizing conferences all over the globe. I'm now the U.S. ambassador for Bitcoin on behalf of the Bitcoin Association. And then locally in South Florida, I've done a ton of events like TEDx and conferences and hackathons. Some of those areas as they intersect with the bigger picture.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. I rate that. Good model. Let's try to keep it as succinct as possible. I know I'm not a great example of that, but that was really great, Robin. Next, we'll go with Lloyd, Felipe, Jimo, and Claudia. Lloyd?
Hi there. Yes, sir. Yes. Hi, DJ. Pleasure to meet you. My name is Lloyd. I am an entrepreneur, electrical computer engineer. I've started several companies, AI companies. I have a bots running in the wild. Also started Code for Philly, work with Code for America. I am currently here to bring my skills to the table. We are on a great merger of AI, like GPT, things like this, where we can quickly spin up different portals, databases, utilizing graph database, etc. Excited to see more of what you've got, DJ, hear more about you, and work with you, and bring all this thing to life. Let's do it. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Felipe, just feel free to go ahead. Jimo, jump in after Felipe. Claudia, jump in after Jimo.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So my name is Felipe Lopez. I'm the co-founder of SUN. It's an acronym for Sustainability United for Nurturing Nature. Our goal is to focus on on building sovereign communities. So our vertical is in the area of agrotech, ESG, finance, real estate, basically all the areas where people need to sustain themselves. My background is as a professional artist. So my work for the last 15 years was all around the climate and natural resources and how, it works with us. Soil is my game. I'm an avid gardener. I've got over 500 plants. I've got a household of 6. And yes, we do feed ourselves on a suburban Houston home. So I can tell you it is possible. To whoever said urban environments, it might not be feasible. It actually is quite feasible. I've put together the team, and this is backed by NASA's scientists that are building our prototypes for verticals. This is also for places like Puerto Rico and for the Ukraine, to where we could just ship it over there. You want the technology. We also have the blockchain tokenized technology that treats energy through entropy at every given point to allow this data to be tracked. This is all within Sun's ecosystem, Silvio. Our focus is on education, so we are going to be showcasing some of our environment or our ecosystem at FIU at the Happiness Festival, March 23rd through 25th. Our NFTs have a variety of utilities. First and foremost, with access points to the microgrids as they get developed, whether it's in suburban or urban environments. This includes utilizing schools and restructuring how revenue and waste management occurs, so schools can have more retention of these monetary resources. So, I spent the last couple of years with industry leaders all over the globe. I was just at South by Southwest speaking with the EU and with German sustainability institutions that are interested in our sustainability institutions that we look at putting on every single state. But yeah, thanks, Daniel. Part of my intro is not just with this group. Part of my intro is with Silvio as well. So thanks for bearing with me. I'll put a link in the chat so you could see all the areas and all the other entrepreneurs that we've put within our DAO. And our goal is to create these sub DAOs in communities on a global scale. So that way we can have aggregate data relative to geographical location for every single quantifiable metric that is in relation to human life forms and, you know, animal and planetary health. So I'm going to put it in there. I've literally worked years for this. So thanks for giving me time.
Hey everybody.
Whoever's next. Sorry.
Yeah. Hi everybody. Jimmo here. I've lived in Tampa for just over a decade and moved to Miami area in Homestead over the last half year, coming up on half a year. I have a background in agriculture. I currently am working on reforestation, also on blockchain, working on measurement, reporting, and verification tools, as well as some tree funding mechanisms and methodologies. Before that, still am involved. I built an environmental science curriculum for middle schools and high schools. We scaled that to about 40,000 students. All of the schools in Tampa have adopted it. I will end with, I don't mean to create any beef or anything with my comment on food security. I've just seen a lot of inefficiencies with economies of scale, particularly around caloric feed, right? So the grains, the rice, the potatoes, the wheat. But I am totally an advocate for making use of traditionally wasted space in urban environments to produce high nutrient crops. I do think one of the bigger values from those types of activities is actually the educational value and the source of inspiration that citizens become exposed to. But I do have some opinions around regenerative agriculture at large and their application in urban environments. But maybe that can be an open dialogue for another time. Yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this initiative, again, focusing on trees, tree canopy, urban canopy, and a lot of that is also built on blockchain. Good to be here.
Thank you, Jimo. And for context, Jimo will be one of the group leads for the Green Economy Working Group. So if anybody's interested, I'm going to drop a link. We already set up a Discord. I set it up, so it's not great, but I think it gives you the idea if anybody wants to chime in, and we can keep fine tuning it. But there is a green economy group there, Jimo. So that'll be all reins with you. Ashley was just on the call. She wrote in the note that she had to drop. But that would be, I think, some of the other sort of counterparties that we'll think about before as we plug you in with the Parks and Rec. So yeah, thanks for being here, Jimo. Love your work.
Awesome.
Excited to have you in Miami.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Claudia?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Silvio, for the invite. Pleasure to meet you, DJ, and everyone here. My name is Claudia. I work with IC Change as the community manager in Miami. IC Change is a global data and community engagement platform that helps cities combat climate change. And we leverage resident-generated data, modeling, and sensors to help engineer cities and utilities design climate-ready infrastructure. So we crowdsource and analyze qualitative and quantitative data to inform public project planning, design, and emergency preparedness. In Miami, we currently have a partnership with the city of Miami. We had a 2-year pilot in storms and flooding. And recently we've been under procurement for a 3-year official reporting tool contract with the city of Miami. And we're starting a partnership with Miami-Dade County. It has already started for the past 6 months. We are about to kick off our campaign, and we're focusing on the intersectionality of heat that will include mobility and health impacts as well. But we're interested in learning more about the social impacts as well. So not all funding would go to infrastructure alone, but also to community sources and more of a hybrid projects. We're supporting green and blue infrastructure, and we're really interested in joining this initiative. We're here to help in every way we can. We are already being funded, and we have the partnerships with Miami-Dade County and with the City of Miami. So we're here to serve and to collaborate with you guys.
Amazing.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
Anyone want to go next? Super.
I'll go next if that's all right.
Please.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria del Mar. My work is very similar to what Claudia has just mentioned. I work in community engagement. I've worked on a series of projects of environmental education and the communications aspect in the intersection between policy, municipal leaders, our community and engineering team. So depending on the engineering project, also assessing what the risk perception for the community is, and understanding, what the community basically has to say about it, and generate community buy-in and a better synergy and collaboration between those three pillars. So that's mostly it.
Yay, thanks, Mari. And Mari is an environmental engineer and sort of local leader and climate champion in the community, has been an incredible inspiration. And really someone that's been thinking long and hard about ways to add value to the community. So really appreciate you, Mari, for all the things you're doing as one of our young community leaders.
Right back at you. Thank you.
Hi, well, I didn't raise my hand, so I don't know.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so hi, my name is Paul Bronstein. I'm the CEO of XR Labs. It's a metaverse and not augmented reality, but more like extended reality company. We focus on bringing these technologies to the forefront of cities. In particular, Miami. We worked here with Silvio and the community developed XR Miami, which is a Miami-inspired metaverse that eventually I hope to experiment with and connect with all these amazing initiatives that everyone has here. The technology in general is a 3D engine that lives on the web. So it's mainly a think of it as a creation engine that can allow you to create anything, connected to the blockchain, connected to any type of AI library, and more importantly, connected to the real world, which I think is going to be something that's going to be highly interesting with, especially with all these geolocation initiatives that are really going to nail down, mixed reality right to the centimeter. So this is all great stuff, and thank you, Sylvia, again for this invite. Really great stuff. I'll post some here of our demos and stuff.
Paul, yeah, I would love to see just a link just to do a little bit of background. That sounds really, yeah, great.
You got it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, great stuff. Daniel?
All right. Great group here, Silvio. And my name is Daniel Kleiman. I'm the founder and CEO of Seaworthy Collective. We're a Miami-based blue tech or ocean innovation startup incubator and community. So we've supported over 20 startups across 4 different continents over the last 2 years, just trying to not only uplift the local community doing ocean and climate impact work, but also help bring startups internationally to South Florida who see an opportunity to implement and deploy here. So I'll put our info in the chat and look forward to connecting.
Thanks, Daniel. Daniel will be one of the co-leads for the Blue Economy Working Group, along with Hardeep, which oversees the One Water Academy and was the last deputy director of One Water and Miami-Dade Water and Sewer, the most popular smart water utility in the country. And thanks for coming and for being here, Daniel, and your contributions to the community.
My pleasure. Keep up the great work, guys.
All right, who wants to go next? Alfonso, you want to chime in, say something, and maybe Ted? And Priscilla?
Okay, didn't think I would be here this long, but okay, yes. My name is Alfonso Guerra. I'm a startup founder, a software developer. I've been programming for over 40 years on equipment from mainframes to point of sales terminals, embedded systems. Currently working on some, I wouldn't call it virtual reality type stuff, but because I'm not into the goggles, but that sort of technology visualization of software and other tools, and the creation of user interfaces that are more natural for people to use, so that there's less technical expertise necessary to get to the data and execute commands or operations that users want to do. And before that, and my best passion is cartoon animation.
Thank you for that. Paul, you and Alfonso should connect. We're going to have a arts and culture working group and a geospatial web working group. Alfonso, you might, definitely. With the
okay,
AR,
definitely.
Yeah, conversation. And I'd love for Ted, if he's around, to chime in and talk a little bit about what he's doing.
Hey, Silvio, can you hear me?
Hey, Ted.
Can you hear me, Silvio?
Yep.
Great. Sorry, I had lost power like right as we were getting started. So this is just this just really fantastic group, Silvio. I can't even, every time you involve me in something, it just gets better. A very exciting group. I mean, I've heard the technologies go through what do we say, graph inferencing. We've also got VR. So my day job, I am a field chief technologist for government and education at Oracle. But I also cover all of the GPU, NVIDIA, Omniverse, all these fun things from both the AI perspective, the Microsoft partnership with GPT-4, et cetera. So we have a lot of breadth there to from a power perspective that I can bring to bear. I'm also I've been in the blockchain and sort of tokenized value community for quite a while, and working across that space. So. I won't belabor my introduction here, but bringing to bear some of the power from from an Oracle perspective where I can, but also and not from a salesy kind of pitch or anything like that. This is a real. It's actually quite inspirational to this group might be able to change the world kind of thing from the stuff that I'm hearing. So just looking to help out where I can and to throw some power and/or potentially budget through. Into some things that might be worthwhile. So
awesome, Ted. Yeah, thank you so much for your encouragement and your support. It means a lot to us. This is Ted Coyle's page there at Oracle for all of you that might be interested in jumping in and getting involved. Ted's really been somebody that's been encouraging me to do more of this work and to focus on taking some next steps there. Andy. Thank you, Ted. Appreciate you being on the line today. Mr. Chabusal.
Hey, Ted. So I have a similar role as you, not with Oracle, but with Lumen Technologies. So I lead our energy and our manufacturing practices globally, and a lot of the times where I'm doing I was like, hey, Ted's intro was a great one. I guess one of the neat things that I also get to do is I'm sort of the behind the scenes selector, I guess, to some degree. I'd create the narrative and the storyline behind the Lumen Light Data Action podcast. So if any of you've not seen that before, we had Kurt from one of the founders of Duality Technology talk about homomorphic encryption last month or this month, and got to have the CTO of Nissan talk about EV and cybersecurity as it relates to car dealerships the month before. And so yeah, so I get to drive the behind the scenes, although my good friend Terry gets all the accolades for being the host. So there's some pretty cool things that we've achieved behind these scenes in there. So, but I get to write the blogs around where manufacturing's going, where energy and utilities is going, and I spent better part of my 30-year career largely in the energy and utility space, and with Capgemini, Ernst & Young, and EDS, and in the management consulting capacity. So Silvio asked me to sit through this in some degree. I'm like, as I was trying to challenge him on some of the things he's described about as, you know, how the technology fits. I always have a very skeptical mind when someone says I have a platform, as I think like, oh, wow, just like you and everybody else in the freaking world who has a platform, and how does it work, for crying out loud, and what does it connect to? And, you know, I continue to challenge him. It's like, if you can't draw it, as my old mentor friend who was one of the founders of Tivoli used to say, Steve Marcy, can't draw it on the whiteboard, person doesn't know what the bleep and they're talking about. So I'm a big advocate of being able to connect the dots, regardless of where you're speaking. So, but I admire Silvio's efforts and what I can do to help. I will try to chime in. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of good things on this, and if I can help by connecting the dots within my contacts, please let me know.
Hey, Andy, this is Ted again. You know, Lumen's a huge partner here with Oracle. So, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of the, particularly when I talk to Silvio, I see where the dots connect. So maybe that could be something that we talk about in the near future.
Yeah, and Ted, so I have pretty good access into our innovation lab, but we're way too early for that. So, but as things progress, who knows what could happen down the road. But yeah, Ted, absolutely, we do a lot of great work with Oracle.
All right. Yeah, so that's super encouraging. Thanks for that, Andy, and thanks for asking the hard questions, the basic questions, and the challenging. I think it's to make sure that everything gets really polished and ironed out before we have to get the rest of the public to listen to me. Angel, Peter, some of people I've been working with for a while are also on the call. If you guys want to say hello. Maria Lopez, I know that you've helped organize a lot of the data and been in the back and helping with making sure that we're dotting the T's and crossing dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Also, please feel free to chime in if you want. And then we have somebody on I. Priscilla, I met. Thanks, Priscilla. If you want to talk about some of your work in terms of arts and culture, I think it chimes well with the metaverse conversation. We're going to have, like I mentioned, a geospatial team to talk about digital twinning and stuff like that, but we're also going to have an arts and culture team. And I hope that there's going to be a good overlap there for how we're able to display some of this information that we're able to gather. And I think Priscilla's perspective could add an example on that. Priscilla?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Priscilla DeBrito. I'm the founder and the lead designer of Sea Sirens. I've worked with many of you guys that I see here in the chat, which is absolutely amazing. With Sea Sirens, we focus on ecotourism, as well as connecting arts through science. And through this, we execute by creating artificial reefs, but it's derived strictly to bringing up the community together and thriving through the locals, corporate companies such as Norwegian Cruise Line has a collection of my pieces, and as well as it brings an abundance amount of blue economy, let's say, as we're speaking about, within the locals and in the ocean. So I've matched and collected data that our project was paid off pretty much within 3 months, under 3 months and a half. So we know that ecotourism is huge. So we do focus on that. And we also work on STEAM education from youth all the way to graduate school through workshops as well as lectures and camps. Primarily right now I'm focusing on children as we've been educating them a lot when it comes to arts and science and technology through NFTs, metaverse, and as well as how to create an NFT, how to mint it, how to open up a wallet, all of that jazz. We also focus on eco lifestyle, NFTs, memberships, as well, building up to that, as well as fractionalizing NFTs so that maybe a reef can be fractionalized in, so everybody gets a piece of it and stake of it so that we can come up with something beautiful and deploy it and have a beginning, middle, and end. I worked within the film industry and commercial industry, so that's part of my background as well. So I am very immersed in the arts. I have more than 2 degrees. And so, yeah, art is my life. I want to say that my forte is definitely innovation design. We come up with a lot of new products, a lot of new designs, and that's where my niche is at, as well as being a creative consultant. I'm very good at analyzing, looking at somebody's product, and actually thinking about branding it, how we would brand it as physical, and as well as for domestic and internationally. I want to thank you everyone for being here, and I am looking forward to all of this. So as you can see, I'm also a fine artist. I have stepped out of the gallery industry because I felt very strongly about the NFT world. And so here I am keeping my cool. As people are saying, I'm being embarrassed, but I believe that this is the future. Absolutely. And thank you. I see Paul, and I see also Lloyd, who are amazing, talented people who I absolutely adore. So thank you for having me.
We adore you too, dear.
That's amazing. That's awesome, Priscilla. Yeah, and thank you so much. You also, also for nudging along the Shrimp Society. So you have a couple different communities that are interested in partaking on today. DJ, let's maybe bring it back to you if anybody else sort of wants to say hello or chime in. Feel free to. But DJ, maybe we can think about, what do we want to, where do we have our low-hanging fruit in terms of coming together as a community, and how much time do we need if we want to create a hackathon, and should it be one day? Should we start on Friday to get people like aware of what we're doing, and then give them ideas to set up teams so then they start hiking Saturday? Should we do open climate or use digs or do both? Or if we integrate the two, what would that look like? These are some general ideas, and now that you can scope the room and have an idea of where we're at, FIU Student Club, UM Student Club, University of Florida Student Club, all have been quite interested also in partaking. So we have some firepower, as well as the largest hackathon, student-run hackathon in the state of Florida is going to be happening in September. So we see this as a pathway that can get us started, and then do a number of other series that can say just scope 1 with like JLL, for example, in the buildings, and just focusing on, net zero buildings. And then as we break down scope 2, scope 3, and continue to build this workshop, right, around and with the working group, scope 2, logistics, and maybe FPL and the power business, and scope 3 with individuals and the gamification, and then the blue economy, then the green economy with Gmo. So I feel this breaking out as we do the climate, as we start to geographically expand across Miami-Dade to Broward, Palm Beach, the rest of Florida, the Southeast, and ideally present at COP toward the end of the year. So we have a real blueprint that we can follow it with the rest of the country, and ideally be rewarded and remunerated, so other people that love it can focus on how they are able to do this. The government expects that the U.S. under USGS and the conversations we've had with the federal government, that it might take them 10 to 15 years to be able to make all the natural capital counts they want. But if we have more citizen science tools and gamification as we plan to do, then maybe we can really accelerate that, right, much faster. And that's my hope, right? Especially looking to you to help guide us as somebody that was involved with the first Collabothon, to all the lessons that were learned, and all the takeaways of how we can make sure to get our own house in order, so we're a proper case study and ready to scale.
Yeah, I think Gmo, that's a really great suggestion. One thing I've learned is that focus is key, and we need to always bring as many magnifying glasses as we can for the sunlight that's always there. And I think my thought would be at a very high level to figure out a way to really look at the framework of open climate as it exists today. And as Sylvia was showing on the screen, I think there are they have some data sets that are already there that roll up and account in a unified way. And I think it would be very cool to imagine within, within a specific context, within a specific use case and a framework, being able to show, for example, sensor data, and different types of sensor data that then can roll up and into an accounting framework where the sovereignty of the data is still maintained, the provenance is stored, on chain and secured on chain and potentially with NFTs. So I think there's a very good start with open climate. And I think we could sort of look at drilling down and double clicking into what it looks like and kind of consider us being responsible for that one region. If you go into the openclimate.network, and if you browse that, you'll see that you can type in different regions. You can type in, different regions. And so I think for Florida, and then, maybe finding a county and just showing how we can start to fill in what does success look like? What is the end state, the most idealized end state that we would want to see, wrapped up, rolled up inside open climate. And so that would be my first thought. But the point of this radical collaboration concept is that we go with the flow.
I think that for sure it could be Miami-Dade County. The idiosyncrasy around Miami-Dade is we have two mayors. We have a county mayor, which I think is a super climate champion. So actually, it's actually a great opportunity. And then under the county mayor, we have like 32, or it's 33, 34 cities. I can't keep track anymore between the unincorporated Dade and the new cities that are sprouting up. But you basically have 32 cities plus the county. The county aggregates a lot of the data and then they share it with other cities. So one of the things I'd like to accomplish is to help my friends or in the resilience office in Miami Beach, in city of Miami, in Miami-Dade County, and the universities like FIU and UM and the students that to sort of collaborate together to say, hey, like what is the data that's out there, right? And then just be able to more quickly query that, like what kind of architecture or scaffolding can we set up that allows us to create a minimum lovable product that does accomplish that for the county to interact with the cities and with the main research universities. But then that's also built so it's ready for the rest of the 30 cities to plug into.
Yeah.
We also have City of Coral Gables, which has the most advanced is the most advanced smart city we have within the county. And I think that after late night conversations and looking at the different sites, maybe for the digital twin team, right, and the geospatial team, they can leverage that small city of Coral Gables, which already has a lot of the data, to just organize it in such a way. Both City of Miami Beach, City of Miami, City of Coral Gables, and Miami-Dade County all already have open data policies, and they all want to move in this direction. So
okay. Well, I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment actually I gotta get to, and so just thank you all so incredibly much. Hopefully it wasn't totally all over the map or too deep in some get too deep on the tech side, but at least we now know one another and have a really good idea what everyone's doing, and we can start to move asynchronously and just start to form like a termite colony or something like that.
Okay.
Hi, Sylvia.
Yes.
Thank
This
you
is
all.
Michelle.
All right.
Hi.
Thank you.
It's Michelle Markovitz, and I didn't introduce myself yet. This is probably the perfect time based on what you just said.
Please. Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I met Sylvia just last week, so I'm not even really sure yet what you all are doing. But I can tell you I became inspired to go back to school and get involved in some sustainability, which led me to climate change. I'm trained civil and environmental engineering, ended up in environmental, but I end up with doing a lot of electrical energy work. I worked at USGS and water quality, like mapping the salt front, working with all those wonderful scientists, emerging contaminants. So I have a quite extensive background and contacts in water quality, groundwater, I should say. And then that led me to the county at Durham, and I worked as a hydrogeologist, again, in wellfield protection. Then I was an air permit engineer, where I started doing all the greenhouse gas emissions for the county. Then they moved me in the work to the Office of Resilience, where I continued to do a lot of things. I wrote the solar feasibility study for, I'm sorry, I'm trying to walk too while I do this. The solar feasibility study using a NREL TA grant. I'm a lead professional, Envision sustainable professional studying for my CEM. I'm a non-traditional student going back trying to learn the environmental finance and risk side of it. And so like Galen, I think started not long in the Office of Resilience before I left. So Jane and Jim and Baron Tansel at FIU. So I have a lot of those contacts that you all are starting to find. So I can definitely help connect dots. I was the contact for a lot of the municipalities to get their data to do their greenhouse gas emissions, often teaching them how to do their inventories. So I can definitely help answer questions in those areas. And now I'm in internal services, where I manage and oversee our utility bill management for all the water and energy, and a few other things. So I'll leave it at that. I love what you all are trying to do. I'm inspired. Thank you. And I look forward to anything I can do to help you.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, actually, and you're one of the VIPs that we have, because our goal is to work around enabling tools for you or the community. And you know that people, you've had to deal with data requests for a long time, as somebody that was compiling the accounts for the community to be able to get together, especially on the greenhouse gas reportings, which I think is maybe the first thing that we can do, is get organize a community around scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, and then around the nature-based mapping, and combine these things together. Could you chat about, what data, what information is out there if we want to create carbon accounts and we want to create water accounts for Miami-Dade, where, who the main stakeholders, decision makers are, what kind of data is available today, and what kind of tools do you think would be helpful if you're able to aggregate and integrate and harmonize this data, right? What tools would be helpful to build on top of that to make the resilience office at the county and others with USGS more able to interact with us?
Wow, that's a load of questions. I think the first thing to do when I talk to people is parse out what really is your focus. So, because when you say scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions right there, who's your audience, right? They're going to, if, scope 3 is far-fetched for like your residential clients, things like that. So it really just depends on what it is you're trying to attack, and then what protocol you want to follow. There's a few international protocols that are accepted. The cities use some models that were created just for them because of the lack of data, like C40 cities, things like that. I can start compiling some stuff for y'all. And then, and the sectors within those categories of emissions, and I think we had someone on the call that talked about agriculture. So my personal opinion, and that's all it is sometimes be really good at one thing and then grow. So maybe you target some things that you can really be known for that and put all that data together and help people, and then grow, or pick 2 or 3 or whatever. But sectors like transportation, waste, of course, this electricity grid, mobile sources like that, it can be so large. And so depending on who you're targeting, it may be over their head. So I'm not really sure like who your target audience is yet. I mean, I know all of you are really smart about all these things. You're going to be compiling data, but I always look at the end user and see who you're going after, and then go after that. But when you look at specific data, I can help you find, like, for instance, the state of Florida, we have waste characterization data, right? Like, what is our waste made up? And that kind of affects the greenhouse gas emissions. How much is in the landfill? How much are we depositing every day? Because then you're looking at like decay of what's already there, what you're adding, for instance. looking at transportation, Miami, huge problem with greenhouse gas emissions in transportation. You know, normally cities and communities talk about buildings, but here, because we're so spread out, everybody is in love with their car. You know, those are big things. Plus we have the cruise industry, MIA is huge, on it goes, right? And the heavy rail. So you get all that kind of data. And then you have, of course, the electricity grid's probably the easiest one because we're in a regulated market. So if you were in Colorado or California, you know, a consumer might have 30 providers to pick from. I don't want natural gas. I don't want somebody that burns coal, or I only want this. So they would have choices here. We don't have a choice. You're pretty much FPL. And if you're down in Homestead, you know, maybe you're a city of Homestead and Homestead utilities. Of course, you have water, you know, looking at water. And I always love to talk about the water energy nexus, and Hardeep can really help drive home some of that stuff where, you know, the energy it takes to clean the water, convey the water. Here in Miami, I don't know, our water, it comes from Biscayne Aquifer, which is so clean. We don't have to spend a lot to treat it. That's why it's heavily protected. So there's just a lot there. I can help you find where these data accepted and normal sources of data are, but it by no means is an exhaustive list, but it's probably a great place to like start and then go. And on a side note, I'll just say, because I heard someone say they kind of new to Homestead. I don't know if y'all know about Atlantic Sapphire, that huge salmon farm that they have out there. I think in the end, when it's done, they want to supply like 20% of the salmon to the population, and they were giving tours. It's pretty fascinating out there. So anyway, I'll stop there because I could go on forever.
No, I think that, you know, maybe a lot of this conversation, Michelle, really should be centered more around you and your knowledge base and the gaps that we're trying to fill, so that we're going in the right direction and we're picking the low-hanging fruit and maybe starting to aggregate the right information. My personal goals, I mean, there's a couple of different ways to look at this in terms of who the end users are. The resilience officers, the academics that are trying to come up with new understandings and linkages between, you know, like myself as an academic, from an academic perspective, thinking about being able to have a data that then allows me to show environmental, economic, and social connections, or being able to, as an investment banker, having the right data that lets me prove and create new environmental finance instruments, right, that are backed with real-time data. That kind of stuff, I think, is at least what I want to do. Then the audience for the United Nations, they want to know, you know, are we collecting the information to begin with, and are we going to report? As we saw, there's a lot of gaps that are missing for Florida and for Miami-Dade to report on its pledge, and we know that we have made the pledge. So I want to make sure that I can hold the county and the cities accountable and enable them, even with our own residents, to say, hey, you said you wanted to do this. This year's the first global stock take. You have to report on your emissions information. It's not complicated. All the data is there. We just need to compile it and put it together and deliver.
Well,
right?
no, it's actually complicated for the municipalities because, for instance, the data is not there to characterize their waste, right? So, and the electricity data is not there at the municipal level. And I think we're up to last couple years ago, it was 35 or 36. So it's a little more than the 32 municipalities, and they do not have access to that data unless they start creating policies that their suppliers have to supply that information. So for instance, when the waste hauler picks up their waste, they have to characterize it for them because the city is not separating it. They don't know. So the truth is municipalities don't have the data. And what happens from the county level is it gets passed down per capita. Like, what is your per capita for this or that? And then they multiply it by their population number, and then they just run with that. But, you know, this will take a long conversation. But for instance, if your city does well, but you're using per capita data for the county and the county didn't do well, then you can't even show that you did well. So it has a lot of challenges. So what you're trying to do, there's two things I'm hearing, I think. So the data that they need to do inventories at a county or state level is pretty good. And it's not that difficult. I mean, I go to the state, I pull the permit data, see, you know, all the emitters, well, you know, there's a whole other conversation. Is it accurate? Are they fully reporting? Greenwashing, all that stuff goes into play, but you have to start somewhere. So you can pull permit data, get emissions, you know, categorize how much, what it is. And then of course, everything has emission factors. And so it's not that complicated, but the municipalities, it's really complicated because it's not down at that small scale level for them. And like FPL, for instance, now I don't know, because I haven't done one in probably 3 years now. FPL never wanted to give like all the municipalities their own data. Like their system's antiquated also on some level. So for them to go into 35 cities and then every city in the state that they supply now wants the same data, they just don't have the bandwidth to do that data. So they pass it down in larger chunks. So that's one thing. And then what you were talking about, the other thing, that's what brought me back to school in Dr. Villamore's class, is this whole idea of getting the actual data from all the emitters and their reporting and having policy and cap and trade, or what does that look like, and like what California is doing and other countries are doing, and creating policies for that kind of data to aggregate that, because that's still really hard to get. That would be more on that financial side and figuring out cost of carbon, you know, all that stuff. And that's why I'm back in school, because I, as an engineer, was always looking at the solutions and always came to money. And then it all kind of came to a halt, especially in government, right? So anyway, I'll leave it there.
Wow. Okay. Super insightful. So even if you want to tackle just carbon is not as simple. Carbon emissions and carbon accounting at that level for Miami-Dade counties, there's a couple of infrastructural issues that would be needed. You mentioned that something like the local municipalities requiring their suppliers like waste reporting would facilitate that. My goal and my thoughts is that from this exercise, we will be able to come up with a number of policy suggestions and playbooks for multiple municipalities to get involved and adopt some of this. And it could be policy. The U.S. federal government, through the Federal Acquisitions Requirement Act, FAR, Federal Acquisitions Regulations Act, I think it is now requiring all federal suppliers to the U.S. government to report on their emissions. So that should be an example that maybe I think that's one way to maybe put the top-down pressure, as well as for us to figure out other ways that we can create these tools and solutions for that to happen. Let's set up I think that's its own working group. I want to be mindful of the time, sort of where we're at. But I also want to, you know, take advantage of the momentum, Michelle, that we've got with you, to think about what conversations are in the carbon sense that are definitely of interest to me. I understand the county doesn't have any policy right now to be able to create or claim carbon credits at a local level or at a state level. We met at the environmental law, symposium at the law school. Do you know anything about this, or have you heard any of the conversations that I've been asking about? These kinds of suggestions, or how this can get done?
So I'm not exactly sure I understand your question. I'm sorry, Sylvia.
No, it's all right. One of them is identifying the mechanics to really be able to have a cohesive carbon emissions framework. And then two is, if you know about any policies that are in conversations today for what it would take for Miami-Dade or Florida to claim carbon credits or create a cap and trade system.
Okay, so the first one is so complex. I think that will definitely be its own call, because basically, if it's ever been alive or is alive, you're going to have carbon, right? So really looking at anything that's decaying, to anything you're burning, to any, all these things. So when people say carbon, that's so huge. That's why I say trying to find your lane is my suggestion. But whatever you decide ultimately, of course, is what you should do. But I'll start putting some stuff together to articulate what it is I'm trying to say. So maybe a visual will help. So for instance, I saw some of those infographics going around. Just remember, simple is better, and the best infographic only conveys one message, right? So I'll put that out there. And the second thing with the emission stuff and the trading or like all that's going to happen. Remember, we're a regulated community here in Miami-Dade County by FPL, who's governed by the commission, the Public Service Commission, and they tend to work hand in hand, even though they're supposed to be in the interest of the customers since it's a monopoly. And they've kind of been opposed to individual solar and distributed resources that, you know, provide that type of energy that you're looking for, the renewable to offset, to have, you know, a carbon neutral supply. So what they're doing is building solar farms to feed the grid, and they are offering subscriptions. So far, I don't know commercially or if it was just to governments, I'll have to find out. And then we pay for these subscriptions so that we can get RECs. But we in Florida are one of the, I think it was 5 states that aren't allowed to have RECs because we're regulated. So if you really wanted to go after policy to have renewable energy, we need to get to the REC stage. We're not even there. If you don't know what RECs are, renewable energy credits. And so we're not even allowed to have those here, and almost every state is allowed. So that's a whole other conversation also. So when you want to look at policies and being able to have your own energy supply choice or green energy supply, then there's the debate, is nuclear green, renewable, because there's no emissions, but then you have nuclear waste. So I just listen to all these conversations. I don't know what the answers are. That's the thing, you know, it's so complex. I don't really know what the answer is, but I can tell you all the things that I know or have shared or seen, and then you can, you know, keep adding to that.
Okay, no, that's super helpful. I mean, just identifying the challenges in and of itself is helpful for us. The goals of collabothons and hackathons is maybe to say, hey, here's the different challenges that we've identified in the community, and then leaning into the community to solve for them or think about ways that we might be able to go around solving them. So just that is in and of itself the answer that we're looking for, at least at this stage of the conversation.
Oh, perfect. I always see more than one side, so thank you.
Do you think it would be easier to compile water data information or watershed information than it would be to create than it would be to create carbon emissions information, then, just given your hydrology background?
Well, when you say water, that's vast. Also groundwater, surface water, and what kind of stuff are you looking at? Watershed is different, like a basin and how capacity, where it flows, all that kind of stuff. Are you wanting like nutrient levels, where they're highest, you know, that kind of, like, what is it you're actually looking for?
That's a great question. I'm going to share the national strategy to create these water accounts with you, and then maybe that's one way we can dig in a little bit further. Gmo, you want to chime in?
Yeah, Michelle, very insightful. Thank you for all the input here. I couldn't help but ask if you're aware of any city or county-wide carbon certification projects, namely within the forestry space, and perhaps if, you know, looking beyond carbon into more novel methodologies like biodiversity, etc. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome question. And that's where I'm trying to go. So my answer is no, but I'm going to start looking it up and looking into it and reaching out to contacts. I do know the county has, you know, depending on the administration, right? It's a roller coaster ride, you know, an ebb and a flow. And so we're back on to increasing the tree canopy. We've had this 30% goal for a long time. Personally, I think that could be a worthwhile project.
Is this part of the Million Tree Initiative?
If we get to that 20, pardon me?
Sorry, it might be my internet connection. Apologies. I was asking if this is part of the Million Tree Miami Initiative. I forget exactly how it's named.
I was just going to say there's the Million Tree Miami. There's a couple of them. So just getting all of them together and helping quantify, you know, what their goals are and what the result would look like. Also from a financial perspective, like what would that do for the community, cooling it, the carbon sequestration, like all these things, right? So just that could be a worthwhile investigation, but I don't know anybody that's taken it to that level yet. I think Tiffany Troxler at FIU has looked at some of the sequestration, like in the Redland and the farm area and with the nurseries and stuff. I'm not exactly sure how far she got.
Sorry, Tiffany, who?
Tiffany Troxler, Troxler. And she does a lot of the blue stuff too. So she'd be fascinating. Probably, I don't know what her bandwidth is, you know, what capacity she has to help, but she certainly can supply information, I'm sure. She's a professor.
Yeah, she's going to be one of the key participants for the Collabothon. We need to sort of aggregate our information around, so we know what information to request of Tiffany. And this is why I think I want to have this sort of town hall, so that we can iron out what our wins can be, right? I think that I've identified, I think a quick win could be after the first phase, which is aggregating, creating a platform that aggregates all the information, and then, you know, building on top of that. My goal is to leverage the tree planting game with GMO, so that we can enrich the city data and the metaverse data in real time with the auto tagging, right? Through like this like Pokemon Go type game of tree stewardship of what exists, as well as also just incentivizing people to steward trees ahead of Earth Day or Arbor Day or whatever, so that, you know, everyone is then able to then take those trees and get those trees planted in the ground. I think that might be an easy win in terms of two things that we can deliver to the county from what I told Galen. And one of them is this platform, the other one is the game. And then from there, sort of to continue in the direction of emissions information and building these nature-based accounts. So that's a little bit of what we see as the quick wins right now.
Right, that would be good. And Tiffany will definitely be a whirlwind of information and I'm sure ideas. So that would be awesome. And then the student thing, you're starting with Baron Tangle and a few others. You know, getting students involved definitely will be good. And I was going to say something about the water. So also you have the water quality thing too, right? And the economy, because right, so much of our economy is based on that water quality, right? People come here to create based around all this water. So there's been quite a few studies done around that. So that's why I say I'm not exactly sure what you're looking at. Surface water people are different than groundwater people. So there.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to break it down into marine accounts and freshwater accounts. And we're going to go what are known as this. You're going to use the SIA standards. So I've pulled up this document that talks about those accounts and sharing the screen on it. And it talks about the best suggestions on aggregating these water accounts together, and how we might want to go about doing that. But maybe we'll circle back and I'll send you some information on the accounts. There's 6 different ecosystem services we've identified that we want to gather information around to prove the value that they provide to Miami-Dade County. Especially to incorporate it very specifically into the back bay study that's being proposed with the Army Corps of Engineers today. Not to get too technical and loose, folks, but that's kind of the direction we're going in. And these are the accounts, right? That this is what the C accounts is getting. I'm not an expert, but I'm gonna get a certification on this SIA to understand what their standards are. The U.S. government has agreed that they're gonna, on the federal level, and the Australian government in the federal level have signed a joint statement that they're going to use this as their framework to collect some of the information. So that will probably be the guiding principles, Michelle, of the information we need and how we should collect it. The same is true for land, GMO. So you might want to focus on SIA accounts for land, GMO, as Michelle, you know, we get her thinking about the water, and then there's an overlap between land and water coverage. Michelle, I interrupted. You were going to say something?
Yeah, no, just real quick. I'm looking at the picture. So my brain's starting to go crazy. So basically it's kind of showing you the water cycle on the top, and then the human use down below, right? How we use it for household irrigation, that kind of stuff. So, and they're trying to relate those two things, it looks like, just at a quick glance, and I'm on my phone, so I can't even see it in one picture. But you know, you've got the surface water, the groundwater, you've got water in the air. Of course, that's why you have that atmosphere up there. The soil, especially here, we hold a lot of water. It's called the vadose zone. So yeah, I think that's what they're trying to say, is now they're putting them into buckets, if you will. Quantify the surface water, quantify the soil water, quantify the groundwater, because in different communities, that's going to look differently, right? We sit on top of our groundwater. Actually, we have 2 aquifers, if you don't know. And some communities have water, but it's so many hundreds of feet deep, they don't even have access to. And then out west, they don't even have an aquifer on, like that to access. A lot of them use river water, right? So I think this is just quantifying, or labeling the buckets, and then each community will then have a framework for putting it in the bucket and quantifying it. That's my first take looking at this diagram.
All right, and I'm going to drop this link in the chat. So if anybody wants to put some attention to that, and I want to bring your attention to this other document that is the national strategy from the U.S. government. This is page 30, but if you go to, this is the national strategy to develop statistics for environmental economic decisions. Right, so this is what I'm trying to help us comply with. Right, so these guys have also agreed to the CS. So we just went through the international standard. Now we're looking at the federal standard. And these are the groups and how they're working on air quality, air and emissions data. So I want to work with Tiffany to pilot the air and emissions information, and maybe with you because you know some of the greenhouse gas information. She has the air sensors, and then we can think of other like private sector ways to deploy more air quality sensors out there, potentially to enrich this data. Now, if you look closely, and I know it's maybe a little bit hard to see, and this is this one, and we'll go to the marine, but this goes up to the agency. So this is a federal government, right? Then I want to create a figure that extends this down to the state and local level, right? So what are the agencies and data providers and supporting groups that need to be involved for us to be able to like aggregate this? Here we have it at the Fed. Now, maybe with your support and guidance, we don't have to do all the accounts. Let's just do one, whatever the easiest one is. And your feedback is really helpful here, so that then we can dig deeper and connect it to a municipal level. And we create the first sort of municipal all the way up to federal level type account, or moving in that direction. Does that make sense?
A picture's worth a million words, and now I see your vision, and I think I have some real clarity, and I agree that is what the municipalities need, because this is where they struggle, the leap from national and state data, even county data, down to municipal data. It's really hard. And so if you can make that leap from the top to the bottom, or the bottom to the top, I do believe there will be real value in that to people that.
My thesis is that we can do that through gamification, right? And so with the game, right, with the Sylvie, for example, right, we can gamify some of these things that let us capture this information, and then maybe we can capture multiple forms of information at the same time, or start to aggregate. Let's say the land account, which is what I was telling you, Jimo, to think about, put your attention towards, is this land account, right? Forests, there's a lot of information around forests and the interconnection between forests and water. So that's why we're setting up the first 2 nature-based teams to be green and blue. There's a lot of overlap there, and I have some supporting documents I can share on that. But at least at this pace with the pilot accounts, these are some of the holders and some of the actors. And again, same idea. Here are federal government agencies, right? Which, by the way, I'm already in working groups with a lot of these people, in the blockchain working group, in the AI working group, in the Internet of Things working group, through the American Council on Technologies. So I have access to those agencies and players that are probably already in different working groups with me. Now we just need to sort of fill the gap at the state and municipal level. And then that's how we create the pilot account.
Just a quick comment there. I totally agree with you, Sylvia. I think gamification can play an incredible role in user adoption. Just wanted to expand that. Just wanted to expand that a little bit into like economic innovation, really. At least where I was in the Tampa Bay area, the cities are spending upwards of $1,200 a tree over a 2-year contract with vendors. And I believe a fraction of that spent on a tree that is positioned to incentivize citizens as stewards could actually fetch a lot more impact per dollar unit. And so I would actually say that my thesis maybe falls a little bit more on the distribution of taxpayer money, but coupled with gamification, I think citizens, can be very well equipped to play a leading role in this change and in the data collection.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's citizen science tools, and it's ground truthing. because as Michelle's pointing out, the hardest part is to get to that level of granularity, right? And you've, with the relationships with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, we should be able to turn it into a fun way to do it. The 1 Million Trees program has $100,000, right, that they might be available if people to encourage them to plant trees. If we can put a dollar value to getting folks out there, which is our goal, then I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, a dream outcome. Definitely not, maybe not enough time to discuss today, and I imagine everybody wants to wrap up, but maybe something for Michelle to think about until we meet again. If there's any appetite for piloting from either the urban forestry program or the Parks and Rec, or whether it's a city or county budget, to pilot at the neighborhood level the deployment of these existing tree budgets or forestry maintenance budgets, to calculate the dollar to impact ratio between traditional vendors with a lot of overhead versus participating citizens. And maybe there's a few gaps in these statements because you're not familiar with what's possible in terms of sapling distribution and backyard sapling maturity and the species specific methodologies that are in place. But yeah, that is exactly where we'd like to move into and test in collaboration with government agencies. But
Wow.
maybe a conversation for another time.
Remind me later. So I don't know if you know, Durham Durham usually leads the way. They do approximately three tree giveaways every year for that reason, right? It saves a lot of money in the end, watering it in, bringing it to maturity, not having to maintain it, trim it, all that. So they have all those numbers on the tree types, how many they give away. And they know there's a lot that won't make it, but you might be able to put the economics to that and help the consumer or the resident who's taking these trees understand how important their role is. So that has definitely some play there.
Perfect. Did you mention a person or an entity specifically to look into this?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's somebody in charge of that. So I'll get you the name. The person I used to work with retired. So I'll find you the name who leads the tree giveaways. With COVID, it stopped, but we've been doing that for years. And when I was in the Master Gardener program, I used to volunteer many years ago in it. So they've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
So there are several programs giving away trees. And
Awesome. Thank you.
We have a meeting coming up with Durham. I met with them last week, and they actually expressed interest in giving us a letter of support to do this kind of work ahead of Earth Day, and that if we needed any data, they'll turn it around for us in 48 hours. And they want to have more of a one-on-one meeting to think about, right, how do we go ahead and build this digital watershed proposal and a digital twin information that allows us to sort of visualize data and make more sense of it. So they're all in. So
Okay.
happy to chat with you on that.
Okay. And one more thing before I forget, because it's all in my brain here, the Endangered Lands Program. So for the people that are looking at the land the county is buying and saving, right? How many acres, what kind of vegetation is there? There's probably some good information there that somebody might want to work with.
Endangered Lands Program. Okay. Jimo, can you pull something up on that?
Environmentally endangered lands. They call it the EEL program, and it's managed through Durham also.
Environmentally Endangered Land Program. Thank you.
And that's Durham also.
Okay, we'll look into that under Durham. All right. Well, I think that we have a lot. I think we're able to I think we just touched the floor in our conversation to help folks. I think we went really high level. We talked about tools, we made an introduction, and now we just really were able to get very super hyper granular. I think it's a great time for us to take a pause here, answer any questions, try to conclude this meeting. I've dropped the link to the Discord chat there. Michelle, there's one working group for the county. I'd love for you to together with Galen, perhaps be one of our working group leads, and then think about maybe how we pull in Durham. But again, I know that you're, and some of the professors on the water accounts conversation. Let's circle back. We'll have a committee meeting, a steering committee meeting Friday afternoon, maybe around 5:30 or so, if anybody's able to join for that. But I want to just be mindful of everyone. Thanks for staying on so far. I think we've been able to cover a lot of ground. There must be a lot of questions, a lot of wheels turning. I know mine's are. thoughts, comments, questions?
Silvio, I'd like to talk with you on a lot of the things that we spoke about, just so you have an understanding of what my team here out of Houston has put together. And I think there's a lot of synergies and, mutual connections, especially within the networks here in Texas with NASA and A&M and Rice University, and working with the colleges out of Miami as well, since we have a lot of coastal lands to protect and maintain.
Okay, yeah, we'll have, I'm gonna pull you into a conversation with GMO, which is one of the other sort of refi heads we have here. And has been in thinking about these things, and I'll put us in a chat together next.
Yeah,
so-
perfect.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well then let's go ahead and conclude this meeting, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey to help our community and save Miami. As you can say, there's a lot of things to work on, lots of things to solve. Your participation is incredibly important, and I'm personally very grateful, and on behalf of our entire community as well. So thanks, guys, so much. That concludes today's first sort of technical meeting. To be continued. Please join the Discord, keep the conversations rolling there, and we'll have the working groups so we can further the conversation along. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Silvio. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.